Hi everyone. So today's stamping technique is going to be the embossed resist. I need to make a card for a mail. So I thought we'd have a go with this beautiful stamp from Sentimentally Yours, and this is the Spectacular Squares Vintage Square Medley. And as you will see, these are really nice big square stamps. You also get the two smaller stamps as well. And this one, as you can see, is well used. So that's the stamp I'm going to be using. I've got myself a piece of scrap white cardstock, just regular white cardstock. And the distress oxides that I thought I'd use are the frayed burlap, the aged mahogany, and the brushed corduroy. And we'll see how this turns out with those colours. So the first thing I'm going to do is take in my stamping platform, and I'm going to lay my cardstock down on my sticky mat to give that a press down. So taking in the stamp, this stamp actually measures 5 1/4 square. So as I say, it's quite a nice big stamp. I'm going to lay that down onto my cardstock. Then I'm going to take in the Versamark, and this is a clear ink pad by Versifying, and I'm just going to ink up that stamp, and I'm going to bring that across. Gives that a really nice press down, and when we lift we can see our image. And for this technique I want to use the Cosmic Shimmer True White powder. I'm going to take in a photocopy paper, and I'm going to let my embossing powder fall all over my image. Give that a tap, and then, as you know, I like to go different ways when I'm heat embossing. Tap off any excess, and that looks good. The powder straight back in the jar, and I am going to heat this up from the back to start with. When you're heat embossing, you need your heat tool to be on number 2, and let that warm up for a couple of seconds. And I'm going to start at the back, just get the back of the cardstock warmed up, and then I'm going to come across to the front, keeping your heat tool moving all the time. Yeah. So there's our image heat embossed, and we're going to let that cool right down before we add any ink to that. So the first colour I'm going to take in is going to be the darkest, and that's the aged mahogany. And because this is a reddish brown colour, I'm going to use my red brush, and that is now quite cool. Stamp off onto your glass mat, and then choose the areas that you'd like to have some red. So what you can see happening is that the writing is starting to pop through. Just going to do some at the top, and then I'm going to do a tiny bit in the middle. And the beauty about doing it this way is you can cherry pick where you want your colours to go. So I think that's all I want to do in the aged mahogany. Now if you've got any tiny daubers, it might be easier to work with those. I do have, but I've started with these now, so I'll continue. Then I'm going to take in the brush corduroy. I'm going to ink up my brush. I'm going to do exactly the same. Dab onto your glass mat, and I'm going to choose the areas that I want with the brushed corduroy. So I want a tiny bit up there. I might do that cog just there, and this area just here. I actually want to just slightly go over his face with the brushed corduroy, just so that we get tone of it being his face. And then the last one, I'm going to go in with the frayed burlap, and I'm just going to go all over any areas that I haven't been. And I also don't mind if I leave tiny white patches of embossing. I made this card for my eldest grandson. His birthday was July the 4th, and he's 26, and he texts me instantly the next morning to say, wow, Nan, I love the card. So there's nothing to say that a man can't have pink or red in their cards, and there's no reason to say that a man's card can't be pretty. Give that a bit of a clean up. Then I'm going to take in a piece of paper towel, and I'm going to give this a real buff up. And now what we've actually got is our image, which looks completely different now we've wiped it off with the paper towel. I'm going to take in my paper trimmer, and I'm actually going to cut this down and we've now got our topper for our card. So I decided to cut my base card down to 5 3/4 by 6, and then I cut myself another white piece of cardstock, which is 5.5 by 5 3/4, and then I cut myself a piece of wood grain cardstock, and this comes from Sentimentally Yours. This is from the wood grain accents, and I used this brown wood grain one, and I cut that down to 5.5 by 5.5, so that's going to sit on the top, and then our image is going to sit on top like so. But with this first white piece, I thought I'd like to do some inking on this background. It's a super fine crackled background, and again by Sentimentally Yours. And all I'm going to do with this one, so if we just stamp up an area with the brushed corduroy, just little areas with the aged mahogany, and I'm just going to go straight from the pad just around the edge. Don't need to do too much. We're not going to see a lot of it, so just pick out little areas, go back in and give that a stamp. So again with the brush corduroy, and it's just a way of creating your own backgrounds. And if I go in that much, I might be able to, yeah, there we go. It doesn't matter that it's not straight, we just want a bit of pattern on the edge. That one, and then just a little bit there, maybe a bit there. There we go. So we've now got this pattern going on, which I think is going to look really pretty behind. give this a wipe off and give my stamp a good wipe off. When you've got big stamps like this and you want to just do some dabbing, it's really easy to just keep them on their carrier sheet and use them like so. So now we've got some interest going on. We've got our base card, our first matte layer, our second matte layer, where you can just see all that lovely crackle, and our top layer. So I'm going to glue this one down. So like I always say, angle it at the edge, and then you should get a really nice even edge. So how pretty does that look already? And then this one we're going to go up on foam tape. So run your foam tape all around the edge and a couple of pieces in the middle. There's a nice burnish with your finger, those back ends. And as you know, I like to remove my outer back ends halfway and remove those center ones completely. And then again, I'm just going to see which is a better way for me. I think it's this way. So angle your card, like I say, get a nice border top and bottom, and let that fall. Tapes. So we've got quite a nice chunky card going on there. And then again, I'm going to foam tape. So again, and if we bring this in, do exactly the same, get a nice even border top and bottom, and let that one fall. You can now remove those. And for the sentiment, I'm going to use the happy birthday with this circle. And these are again from Sentimentally Yours, and this is the Tres Chick Mandala circle frames and mini sentiments. And the nice thing about this is you've got all these frames and then the sentiments are separate. So I'm going to choose that one, and happy birthday to you. I'm going to lay down my stamp, taking in my stamping block. I'm going to ink this up in frayed burlap, and I'm just going to stamp this down, which is fine. Don't do what I've just done. I've put in a tiny stamp on a big block, so I am going to remove that. Always use the right size block to avoid your block from rocking, which then will cause the stamp to smear. And I think I'll do this in the aged mahogany. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can either stamp your sentiment straight into the center and cut it out as a hole, but I want mine separate. So that says happy birthday to you. And with this bigger circle, I would just follow this around, fussy cut it, follow it around like so, to be too fussy. It's a shame there's no dies to actually cut this, but that's fine. I don't think there's any dies, I haven't seen any. But then I have so much Sentimentally Yours products now, I seem to forget what I do and don't have. The dies, the circular dies from Sentimentally Yours, and this is the Elegant Eyelet Circles. And I'm sure that there's one to fit that and fit in there. So yes, that one's going to fit beautifully. Because it's got the eyelets, it's going to be in keeping with the theme that we're going with. So I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine. So that is just going to sit on top of there on some foam pads. A couple of foam pads. I'm going to cut these down. Just 3 squares should be enough. Remove those back ends. Even as I possibly can, and pop that one down. So that's now got some depth to it. I'm going to glue this down with tacky glue, and this is going to go right up in this corner, and it is going to overhang corner. So that's how the front of the card is looking. The main thing about making this card was showing you the resist emboss technique. So I hope you enjoyed that side of it. I hope you've learnt something. And until the next time, bye for now.